YouTube and preppers, welcome back to the channel. Well, we just got back from doing some grocery shopping, and we had some specials on meat this week, namely sausages. I picked up a couple of packs of plain pork and beef breakfast style sausages, but I also got a deal, 30% off on some of these combo sausages, combo pack. There are 6 different kinds, 2 of each dozen sausages per package. They were 30% off. Best before date is March 19th, which is today, I think. Yeah, that's today. So we're going to get these into the canner. And stock up on some food storage again. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to use the electric frying pan, just because of the volume that it holds. We're going to be doing quite a bit of browning here. I've got all my jars washed, sitting on the drain board. Everything should be good here. We're going to put the pork and beef sausages into the pint jars, because they'll fit. I'll be able to fit 6 or so at least into a jar, which is a serving for the family, 2 sausages each. If I can fit 9 in there, that'd be awesome. We'll see how that goes. We'll get a 3rd sausage in there, get a little beefier, a little meatier meal for everybody. These ones I'm going to try and get 6 into a quart jar. That shouldn't be a problem. Serving on these for the family is definitely 2 per person. The kids are teenagers now, so I just calculate them as adults. But yeah, and we're going to try and get 6 of each. I got 3 packs, so I'll have 6 of this type, 6 of this type, 6 of this type, so on. We'll try and get those so that they're all the same type in each jar. I'm going to do 5 jars of these. Yeah, I have 6 different kinds. I'm going to put one aside for dinner tonight. But let's get browning up. We're going to start with the quart, with the pints. We're going to start with these pork and beef sausages. So let's just see. Get these opened and get them browned. This is the toughest plastic I've ever seen. Now the instructions for doing sausages say to cut your sausage into 3 to 4 inch links. Well, when you buy them like this, it's already a 3 to 4 inch link. Let's get some of these into the pan, get them browning, and once we're ready to get them into jars, I'll be coming right back. Alright, so we've got our first batch of sausages lightly browned as per instructions. By the way, I use the USDA Guide to Home Canning. I've looked at that new ball book, the new ball book of home preserving or whatever. And it's not my favorite book. I was quite disappointed when I took a look at it. A friend of mine kind of sent me a copy, and I took a look at it, and I was like, well, you know, I thought there was 300 recipes in here. And I guess there are, but most of them are for jams and jellies and things like that, and that's just not what I'm looking to do. I already have instructions to do that and recipes for that, but it's also got a huge section on freezing, which I'm good on. It's just not a book for me. It may be a book for you. If it is, great, but for me, I'm not a fan of it. I was very disappointed in it. Yes, the basics are there, and it will teach you how to do it, basically, but the free USDA Guide to Home Canning concentrates completely on canning. Doesn't have so many actual recipes, but once you get the basics down, you can make your own. So these are the instructions I'm using from the USDA Guide to Home Canning. Now, I just took my jars out of hot tap water, so they're nice and warm, and we're going to start filling these jars. The length of these are perfect once they're browned down a little bit. They come right to the 1 inch mark. 4, 5, 6. It looks like I'm going to be able to get 7 in a jar. Can I try for 9? Pack this one right in there. 2, 4, 6, 7, 8. 8 sausages per jar. You know what? That'll do. Let's get the rest of these jars finished. Mind my fingers. I did wash my hands off camera. Or actually, the camera was running, so maybe I'll show that just to make sure everyone believes me. My hands are clean, freshly washed. Do not worry. These in here. 2, 4, 6, 7. One more. 8 sausages. And there. So for my family of 3, the kids can each get 3 sausages, and I can deal with 2. That works just fine for me. And 1 pack. I'm doing 8 sausages per, 24 per pack. So I'm doing 3 jars per package. So I guess the 8 per jar kind of worked out nicely. The 8th one is a little bit tough to get in there, and he's warm too. Touch. We'll get him in there. Alright, second batch is only going to be 16 out of the 24. We'll throw these in a freezer bag, throw them in the freezer for maybe later this week, or maybe a nice weekend breakfast or something. So sit back and relax. I'll do the work, and I'll be right back. Alright, so here we go. Second batch is ready. That will complete the 5 jars that I wanted to do. Ooh, these babies are warm. They're just lightly brown. They're not cooked all the way through. I need a towel just to wipe the heat off my fingers here. Not cooked all the way through. Lightly brown. I hear my water's boiling in the kettle. Awesome timing. 2, 4, 6, 7, and get that 8th guy in there. Not cooked all the way through, but lightly browned, as I was saying. I keep starting that and forgetting it. The browning is going to add some flavor to this. And I've noticed that raw packing meat, man, these are warm, and I miscounted. Raw packing meat doesn't give you the kind of flavor that you need. 2, 4, 6, 8. There we go. I miscounted. I have 2 extras here. That's all right. Lunch for me. So the browning will give some extra flavor to that, which I find when you don't brown meat, when you're canning it, it can come out kind of bland and flat, and it's really kind of tough to re-infuse any kind of real flavor into it, especially the kind of flavor that a browning like this will give it. So we're just going to top off all these jars with our boiling water up to the 1-inch mark, more or less. There we go. Boiling water. You can use a hot beef broth, a hot chicken broth. You can use a hot tomato juice is another suggestion that comes out often. I'm just going to use water because that's basically what I've got right now. I'm not going to bother putting broth in this. And then we're just going to debubble it down around the sides, all of them. Get all those bubbles out. And there we go. And we may have to readjust the headspace. I doubt it. There's not that much air coming out of these things. One after the other. And I'm noticing the water now that's in these jars got a little glistening of fat on the top. So I'm expecting that there's going to be a layer of fat in these when they cool. Again, I think the best way to deal with that is just to sit the jar in warm water before you open it and let that layer of fat melt so that you can get everything out nice and easily. Alright, so there we go, and I'm looking. Yeah, I'm gonna just top off a little bit, a couple of them. Bring them up to that 1-inch spot. They don't need much. Dribbles in most cases. And that one doesn't even need the dribbles in that one. Alright. Now, we're going to clean off the lips of the jars, as we always do. A little bowl of vinegar there for that. Wipe around. Especially because I see the fat coming out of these. We don't want any fat molecules or bits of fat or anything sitting on the lip and messing up our seal. Alright, so that part is done. We can put the kettle back over here for now. And we've had our lids simmering in water this whole time. So these are nice and warm and ready. We pick up one at a time. Put them on. And you know, this, I think, when I'm doing this, would be the perfect time to start heating up the canner. The canner already has about 3 quarts of water in it. That brings it up to the level where it should be in the bottom. And we can just put on our rings, finger tight like I always do, till it stops, small crank. And that's how we do it. So, spin it on, small crank. If you have a hard time getting these lids to the rings to sit, run them backwards until they fall down into the grooves, and then you'll have no problem. But normally they go on fairly easily. So here we have the canner going. It was hot water that was put in here, hot tap water. Yeah, that's warm enough for these. And we're just going to drop these 5 jars right in. There's no concern for space. It's only 5 jars. But I don't want to mix my quarts and my pints because the processing times are different on that. To get the proper processing time on the quart jars, my pints would be overdone. And I find when you overdo things like that, that's when you start getting the danger of jars exploding. So we'll get the lid on here, line up the arrows, crank it on. It's getting a little bit easier now. That new seal is starting to wear in a little bit. And we've got our heat on max, so we'll just wait for this to come up to temp. And we'll wipe the water off the top of that, just because I'm a bit OCD about this type of thing. There we go. We're going to wait for that to get up to temp and vent out for a few minutes, 10 minutes of venting. And we'll put our weight on and we'll start our timer. I'll let you see what these things look like when they come out. Okay, well, we're almost done the run on the first batch, the pint size with the breakfast sausage in it. And I've already got my other sausages set up and ready to go. They've been browned, they've been put in, boiling water added, air bubbled out, readjusted, lidded. They're ready to go in the second those ones come out. But while we're waiting, I figured I'd take a minute to explain. The canner that I'm using, it's the Presto 23 quart. And it's what's called a dial gauge canner. Now, you'll notice probably not from there, but I'll tell you about it anyway. The pressure for meats is 11 psi for where I live. So the way to maintain the temperature in that, to maintain the proper pressure, when I first start up this canner, I will put it on high heat, all the way to the top, max, full blast, I'll let it come up to about 7 or 8 psi, and then slowly start turning down the element. If you left this on high, it would go all the way to the max. It would go in danger. Pressure plugs would start blowing. It wouldn't be a good thing. The way you maintain the pressure in a canner like this is by slowly reducing the temperature on your stove while maintaining that 11 psi. Now, like I said, I stop it usually, start turning things down at 7 or 8. They still continue to rise up to the 11, just not as quickly. And then when I start hitting the 11, I really start slowly turning it down. Right now I'm at about 11 and a half. I was at 12 at one point. That's not too bad, but you don't want it going up to the 15, 16 mark, or especially anywhere even close to or above the 20. For something like this, your jars will start leaking and everything will come out of the jars. It'll be a big mess. So, as opposed to some of the pressure canners that are a weighted gauge, the weight that you put on top of the canner in that case is what regulates the pressure. You have a choice of 10, 15, 5, whatever. And the reason I don't like those is because they don't have an 11 psi. And that's what it takes, is 11 psi. So that's where we are. That's the difference between the two styles of canners. If you're new to canning, you should be aware of that, because the first time I canned with this, I was trying to figure out what was going on. The pressure kept rising. I was really nervous. I had to get some advice from friends as to what was going on. And that's what they told me. Start it at a high temperature. As it gets increasing, and as it gets close to that 11 psi mark, you can start turning down your oven to try and maintain that pressure. Keep an eye on it though. Don't turn it down too far. You do not want this gauge to drop below 11. If that happens, you have to bring it back up to 11 and restart your counter. We'll be back when I change these out, and it shouldn't take too long, thanks to YouTube magic. Alright, well, the canner's run through its 75-minute cycle at 11 psi. The lock is down. This is completely depressurized now. We're going to open it up and check this out. I'm seeing this for the first time myself. I've never canned sausages like this. Get this open. Try to go away from us like that. Well, I hear lots of sizzling and bubbling when I open that. Let's check out. See how they did. Well, maybe we'll open one of those later to see how really they look. But it does look like the sausage is kind of expanded into each other. They may be a little bit stuck together. But other than that, looking pretty good. I remember these were fairly well squeezed in together. The other sausages that I'm going to do, I'll put 6 in a quart jar, and they're a little less compacted against each other, so that might help with that problem. But yeah, I am noticing that these guys kind of, they look like they melded together a little bit into maybe one big sausage chunk. Still edible. If I have to cut them up or whatever when they come out, so be it. But here we go. And there's those. They are bubbling and boiling still. So we're going to definitely let those cool before we even think about, oh, one's already popped down. Before we even think of opening up one of those. So the other sausages, the European style ones, they're ready to go in. Drop those into the water. There isn't enough water loss from the first run to bother adding anything more. So we'll just put these jars in. space them a little bit. Reduce the knocking together. And we can crank that on high. Put the lid on. Lock it into place. Let that come up to temperature and vent before we put the weight on and start our second run. While we're waiting for that to happen, though, you've probably heard the droning on of my dehydrator here. What I've got in it today is just some stale bread slices. Whatever didn't get used up from the homemade bread. Sliced up. The crust, the kids don't really like them. I don't really eat them, so the crusts go in here too. They get dehydrated and ground up into breadcrumbs. Price of breadcrumbs these days, I don't see the point in wasting bread or throwing it to the birds. I'd rather use it myself and make my own breadcrumbs. But while we're on the subject of dehydrator, I have done more broccoli, and what I'm going to start doing now that I'm getting a collection of dehydrated vegetables like this is I'm going to order some 100cc oxygen absorbers, turn some of these jars into long-term storage instead of just shelf-stable. And this was an interesting product. It came out really colorful. This is nice. This is a tropical fruit mix that I dehydrated, and in this jar we have a whole pineapple that was cut up and dehydrated. We have a whole papaya that was cut up and dehydrated, and a couple of mangoes that were cut up and dehydrated, all at the same time in the old Excalibur here. And I made a nice tropical fruit mix. The idea behind this is going to be maybe add some peanuts or some almonds or some kind of nut that I find that'll mix well with this. Some shredded coconut maybe, and make my own trail mix packs. I'll have to order some small Mylar bags, and again the little 100cc oxygen absorbers, but for now we'll just put it in this jar to hold it. So the dehydrator's been busy too. It's not just the canning. We're going full force into food storage these days. But while we're on the topic of canning, there are a few things that I've learned in my canning experience over the past month or so, really getting into meat. Here's some ground beef that I pressure canned a while ago. And it wasn't a raw pack, but it was a dry pack. I browned the ground beef first, put it into the jar, and I did not add liquid. And I've seen that recommended by a few other YouTubers, and I would not do that again. This thing has become, it's just a solid mass. It might as well be one of my jars of meatloaf at this point. This is going to be a pain in the keister to get out of this jar, but I only did the one like this, so I'm glad I only did one. I didn't waste too much, but this, I'm never going to do this again. That's why even today with the sausages and whatnot, I did not dry can these. I filled them up with water. Trust me, you're going to get a better product out of it. A lot of people say that the water kind of dilutes the flavor and whatnot. Malarkey. Season it up afterwards. Put some extra seasoning in if you want when you're canning it to help that out if you really find that that's a problem. But trust me, don't try the dry canning. Everything sticks together. It's going to be impossible to get out of the jar. You're going to have to be carving at it with a spoon or a knife or something to get it out of there. It's going to be a giant pain in the keister, that much I know already. Another thing I wanted to do while I was dealing with the ground beef is, as I browned it, I wanted to save the fat. I've seen other people comment that they can save the fat and use it as tallow to make soap. And this is what I got. Now, there's a solid layer of fat on top, and then there's this liquid on the bottom. And I'm thinking what that liquid on the bottom is water. Grocery stores have been famous for doing this in the past, adding water to their food or if they're washing the meat or whatever, it's not draining off, and there's a lot of water content in the meat. It's disappointing that there was more water than fat in this round that I did. So I don't think that's going to work out too well. I don't think I'll be using this for anything. Probably just warm it up and pour it out. But yeah, first attempt on saving fat from ground beef frying to use as tallow for soap is a definite failure. It didn't work. I don't know how people are getting it to work, or if they're getting it to work, or and just playing that it worked on YouTube. That happens a lot too. But here's my experience. It's a no-go. We're gonna let these sausages come up to temperature. It hasn't even really started venting any steam yet. Then we're gonna throw the timer on, 11 psi, 90 minutes, because these are quart jars instead of the 75 for the pints here. And then when I pull them up, we'll be back to you. Won't take long. See you soon. Okay, folks, here we go. The canner's done. The 90 minutes are up. It is completely cooled. We'll take off of our lid. And let's take a look how these other sausages turned out. Grab her. Here we go. Half a dozen European style sausages. All sorts of different flavors and styles. All canned up and ready to eat. Now, this makes 10 meals that I've done for my family. At least the protein portion of it. In just part of a day. It only took me a few hours to do this. And everything was bought on sale or liquidated. So it's a savings. Even if the only thing you're really prepping against is inflation, this is the way to go. If you're prepping for other emergencies, other disasters, well, so long as you're not bugging out, this is a great solution. Just home canning your own food. And trust me, over the summer and in the fall, I'll be doing a lot more once the garden goes in and starts producing. But for now, here we go. 10 meals, didn't cost me very much. Cost me a few hours of time to get prepped up and ready, and they're good to go. So if you're not doing something today to improve your preparedness situation, you're losing out. You really should be doing something. Do something every day. Set aside, even if it's an hour a day. Set aside half a day on a weekend, a half a Saturday or a half a Sunday, and do something to improve your preparedness situation. Because, boy, let me tell you, you got to be prepared, Canada. It's a tough world out there.